welcome to the final Saints FC podcast of what has been an absolute stinker of a season for Southampton. You kind of want to get to this point of the season and be like, yeah, it's our end of season podcast. What a celebration. Let's go off and enjoy the World Cup, which I'm sure we're all going to be doing, but we need to pick over the bones first. So to help me pick over the bones of Southampton's 2017-18 season, to my left I have Mr. Tom Parker. Tom, how are you?
I'm better.
Yeah?
Better now. More optimistic.
And I also have my brother James helping us out this evening. James, welcome back to the show again.
Thank you. It's good to be here again.
Yeah. And I will confirm that all three of us are more sober than the last time you heard us behind a microphone, which was Tuesday last week, just after we'd drank a bottle of champagne celebrating Southampton beating Swansea.
This time a week ago that night. Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, that was wonderful. Obviously, if you want to email into the show, you want to tell us about your experience of last Tuesday night, you want to get in contact with us on Twitter, you can do so, saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com or at saintsfcpodcast if you want to get us on Twitter. I will also point out, if you've not already listened to the SFC Superpod, as it has been dubbed, but we have collaborated with Matt from Southampton Delivery Podcast and Ben from the Total Saints Podcast to do a podcast with three of us on, and we recorded that this week. So if you haven't listened to that one, do go back and have a listen. Right, let's I mean, it's obviously a special podcast because it's the end of the season, so we've got a lot to get through on the agenda. So but first of all, we haven't had an episode where we've coherently talked about the Everton and Swansea games, and we haven't talked about the game against Man City at all. So, I mean, let's just cover the last few games of the season. I also suggested maybe bringing the Bournemouth and Leicester City games into that, because I think those last 5 games of the season, what was it? 5 games to go, 5 points behind Swansea, 5 points away from safety. That was where we were standing after the defeat to Chelsea. Now we're kind of sat here knowing that Southampton are going to be a Premier League club next season. What went right in those last 5 games of the season?
It's passion. I think we all knew the players had talent. There was no doubting the quality of a lot of the players we had. There maybe was a doubt, did we have enough goals in us? But all we've really seen, it's the same players that have gone out. It's just a question of passion and application.
So, I mean, a lot of credit to Mark Hughes, who I think we're going to get onto Mark Hughes as one of our season topics, which are only 8 Premier League games. James, what was it for you? What was it?
I completely agree with Tom. It's passion. It's getting those players in 2018 playing under Pellegrino. All of them had heads dropped. Lots of them you could see weren't interested in being on the pitch, didn't like being on the pitch, weren't confident in themselves, and then Hughes comes in, gets them all riled up, and I think that's all they really need. They were good enough players to stay in the Premier League. They just needed to know that, you know, they weren't going to get away with it going back into the changing room after putting in a poor performance.
So, I mean, I wonder, was Hughes ruling by fear? Did he just manage to get the players fired up and believe in themselves? Was there a technical approach that was different? I think Tadic said quite early on, it was maybe after the loss to Arsenal, that the Saints players were already starting to feel the effects of his training sessions, as in they were feeling a bit sharper. He was working them a bit harder. And that's another interesting thing. I think Matt Targett, who we might come on to mention later on this, he mentioned this when he went to Fulham, that he felt kind of sharper after the Fulham training sessions. I mean, was Pellegrino just totally lacklustre in the way that he was training the team? And did that also help the players kind of step up when Hughes came in and give us that boost in the last 5 games?
It's weird because I read about Claude Puel earlier, and one of the reasons why they think he might be in trouble because he's lost the players at Leicester is because he's too physical in training. I think there's probably an element of allowing people to be more aggressive. I don't know the stats, but it seemed to me that Saints seem to have a lot more players booked under Hughes. They were a lot more aggressive. I think tactically they did a few things which made a huge difference. They no longer stood off when they took the lead. We took the lead in a lot of games this season, but we often stood back and we conceded. I think Hughes taught them to keep pushing forward, and I think that made a big difference. And he also seemed to sort of get certain players that obviously I think need a bit of love and a bit of TLC, and players like Tadic and Redmond that maybe need to feel made a bit, as silly as it sounds for a group of uber talented millionaires, maybe they do need to feel a bit loved. And I think there's that. And the final thing I'd say is I do increasingly think now, when you look at how wealthy and how privileged and how cosseted modern footballers are, I wonder if now, unless you are a superstar coach, so you don't have to have been a great player, but you can be like a Mourinho or a Wenger, but maybe they need someone like Mark Hughes. And Mark Hughes comes in and they go, he played for Man United, he played for Barcelona, he was a winner. Yeah. And I wonder the impact that has on a group of players.
I think that's a good point. I think that's kind of part of the allure of Ronald Koeman as well, is just what a good player he was, and and the success that he had. But Mark Hughes was part of a Manchester United team that did really brilliant things under Ferguson in the 90s, and I guess he probably has that effect on some players as well. And it was quite a short period of time, and there did seem to be quite a dramatic turnaround, which it's funny because if you look back to his first Premier League game with Saints, it was that awful loss at the London Stadium against West Ham United. We lost 3-0. And then we actually went on to lose the next two games, the game against Arsenal, the game against Chelsea. But I think in the game against Arsenal, the game against Chelsea, I saw enough to think that we might actually get out of the mess. Like I suddenly realised it was possible, if you know what I mean.
I think we were playing in those two teams. I mean, Chelsea are not the team they were, and arguably, their win against us was actually more of an anomaly on their actual form towards the end of the season. But we realised we were playing really good teams, and also, in Giroud, we're playing our bogeyman. The question for Saints all season is not, they've not turned over any of the teams you'd expect them to turn over. If you look at, there's a whole raft of mid to lower league teams. I mean, we've barely won any games, to be fair, but we've not really turned anyone over of any note. So I think we saw the quality in those two games. We saw application, and as we said before, they're good enough players. They just needed to have a bit of self-belief.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a very good point to say that we didn't actually beat a single team this season that was in good form. Like, if you look at probably the biggest win was
against Everton,
yeah, and there was that.
It was the last game under the caretaker. I can't remember his name, but I think you're absolutely right. If you look at
David Unz.
If you look at the games we won, there's not what we didn't go and beat a Spurs, or we didn't go and we didn't beat anyone of note. We just about, apart from the Everton game, ground out results. And did we win a game by 2 goals, apart from Everton?
Well, the answer to that is in the league, no.
No, I mean, that's a shocking stat. And it kind of reinforces just how lucky we were. A, how poor the Premier League's been this season, and B, how lucky we were.
I mean, we were supposed to be talking about the Mark Hughes positive bit for the last few games. I mean, if we scroll through Saints fixtures, and we've got a kind of table here which shows like yellows and greens for draws and wins, and then red as the losses. And that worst run of form, arguably, was the 4 games, including Pellegrino's last game and Mark Hughes' first 3 games.
And 12 goals conceded in that time.
Yeah, I mean, astonishing. But then we followed those 4 games without losing one, and 2 wins and 2 draws, which is ultimately, it was 8 points, which we got, needing 5 points to make us, to catch up with Swansea, and then we got another 3, which lifted us above them. And it's funny because, I mean, quite a few times we looked at the remaining fixtures, and I don't think any of us expected Swansea to be on that few points by the end of the season, but their capitulation at the end of the season was also pretty key, because we didn't finish above Huddersfield, who had a terrible fixture list, and we didn't finish above Brighton. And if Swansea had just managed to get their act together for even 2 or 1.5 of their last games, we could have had all of that resurgence and still not achieve survival.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't think this is a story of a Southampton great escape. I think this is a story of a Swansea complete capitulation. I think capitulation is the right word to use. We did what we had to do, but we were greatly assisted by a desperately poor Swansea team.
So, I mean, we have been quite unlucky, I think, in some of those games as well. So where we have dropped points against Arsenal and Chelsea, against Man City, arguably, against Everton, certainly. But yeah, I mean, we got over the line. We had the game against Swansea. We got the goal. And funny enough, I remember when we were recording at half-time, I felt like things were going pretty badly. I didn't really see us having a grip on the game. By the end of the match, I just was sheer elation and relief. But actually watching back the highlights, Saints were the better side against Swansea. And although it was a scrappy goal befitting of a terrible relegation fight, I think Saints, on reflection, probably the right team to stay up out of Saints and Swansea.
It's a 38-game season, and the right team always wins it, and the right teams always stay up. But there's no luck involved over 38 games. But one of the great things we saw, and we've spoken about Mark Hughes' positivity, was, Bednarek goes off, Swansea are desperate to win it, and we bring on another centre forward. And I would be amazed if that had happened under Pellegrino.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there was a lot more attacking, just like really, throwing everything at it, because that's what we needed to do in that second half. And Swansea brought on an extra striker, and instead of responding by bringing on a defender, we threw on another striker. So we were like, okay, they're going to open up now at the back. We'll have more space, and we did, and we got the goal, and we did put a lot more pressure on them than they did. They had a few good shots, but like when we scored that goal, we had already had 15-20 minutes of solid possession in and around their box, and we definitely should have scored, and we did.
And I think that, just to say, I think the Gabbiadini bringing on is a masterstroke, not only because obviously it's brave, but we were getting chances in and around the box. Charlie Austin had 3 or 4 good chances, which invariably went straight at the keeper. On the fourth one, it goes straight at the keeper, but the ball bounces back, and who's there? Gabbiadini, the man who is like Johnny on the spot, probably, one of the best strikers we've had like that for years.
Gabbiadini is actually great in the 6-yard box, isn't he? I mean, we were told about this kind of like quick player who can play on the wing, can also play as a centre forward, loves a ball in front of him, can run onto that. But actually, if there's a goalmouth scramble, Gabbiadini is the man that you want in there. He's brilliant in that situation. His reactions just must be that half a second quicker than everyone else there. It's
anticipation, isn't it? You can be I can't remember, we had this debate before, and people said we wanted a great goal, you want a score of great goals. No, you don't. You want a great goal scorer. Yeah. You want, like, you can have all the 30-yard volleys, but you'd probably much rather have like a Tony Kroos, World Cup goal scorer. When you look at every single goal, he's got 18 goals in World Cups, and 17 of them were inside the 6-yard box or something ridiculous. So that's what you need.
They all count.
They're all the same, and that's what matters.
So I mean, when we were a little bit inebriated in the pub in the Lord Clyde, we kind of focused on Mark Hughes kind of offering out Buffal as one of the turning points of the season. But I think Mark Hughes' strength actually has been the way he's reacted to certain situations. And it's almost that kind of, if you put Mark Hughes on the spot, he's kind of got that leadership quality that means he makes the right decision. So if you back him into a corner, he makes the right decision to get out of the corner. And so there's the Buffal refusing to warm up and then, offering Mark Hughes a fight in the change room, and Mark Hughes, saying, yeah, bring it on. There is how he reacted to the hotel booking being cancelled.
Absolutely.
So he made that an us against them thing. The same with the police escort. The same with the bus arriving at the stadium. Now, if you listen to it, Saints apparently were half an hour early because they're so worried about the traffic. So they just hadn't shown up at their allotted time. But Mark Hughes manages to turn that into something that is like just an administrative nuisance and someone being a little bit of a job's worth, into a us against them battle, backs against the wall survival. And then also when Bednarek gets knocked out, he brings on a striker. That wasn't a decision that he made because he was planning to make that decision at that moment in time. That was an opportunity which came up. He was backed into a corner and he made the right call at the time. And you look at all of those kind of, and also, I mean, people have a go at Mark Hughes for blaming the referee, but the game against Everton, that was the perfect thing. You didn't want to blame that on the players and say, well, actually, Bertrand should have hoofed it out, or, we should have done this, we should have done that, we should have been concentrating. which you could blame. You could legitimately blame that goal on. Instead, he makes it an us against them thing, and I think that kind of whole little sequence got us the result that we needed in the end.
I think as well. I almost wonder if the Everton goal did us a favour because it sharpened the mind. If they'd have gone away at Everton, they'd have won 2 games in a row, which they'd not done all season. And I don't know if there maybe would have been a temptation to take the foot off the gas, but I almost think it made the Swansea game an FA Cup final. It made it winner takes all.
Yeah.
And maybe the unintended consequence of the poor clearance from Bertrand, of the bad referee decision, is that we stayed up.
Yeah.
You don't know.
So, I mean, I've been very impressed with Mark Hughes. I mean, if you'd have asked me kind of halfway through the season, who do you want to replace Pellegrino with, Mark Hughes wouldn't have been on my shortlist. If you asked me at the start of the season, take any player, any manager that you think would be within Southampton's kind of like ability to attract, Mark Hughes wouldn't have been on my shortlist. But if you ask me today who I think should get the Southampton manager's job for next season, well, I'd say it probably should be Mark Hughes. I think he's shown us enough in 8 Premier League games, and particularly the last,
3 games.
Yeah,
last 3 games, yeah. 3 or 4,
yeah.
He has. He's got a squad which was misfiring, not working together, not enjoying playing football, looking half decent. We're not there yet. We're not back to being a top half of the table side, but I think he's got enough in him to build that momentum, keep the players together. The way Tadic has been playing since he's come in, the way Redmond has looks improved, the fact that Gabbiadini has been on the pitch and scored a goal, it's all enough, isn't it? Is it enough to get him the job?
I'd hope so. I think he deserves it. I think we've tried with the sort of trendy foreign coaches that have the great coaching badges and the great reputations. As I don't think that is maybe what we need. I think we need someone who can knock heads together, who can weed out, I think, bad eggs, and I think we have had some bad eggs in the squad this season. And I think he needs a group. And I think one of the things today, and we'll come to the Kruger interview, but it is about, they've recognised now that they need a squad. They need togetherness. I think there are some players in there that aren't buying into that, and I think the sooner they're out, the better. But I completely agree.
Now, I'm just going to be controversial and say that he's been exactly what we needed to stay up. He gave the players fight. He made them play well enough to stay up, but I don't think he's next season he's going to give us what we want, which is a reliable team that will go out and we can expect to win. I didn't think I saw that in any of the games that we've played under him, and we did have fight, but defensively we were still pretty awful. All of the players still looked scared. They rarely looked confident, and some things happened in the games where you were just like, why isn't the manager responding to this faster? Like at the Chelsea game where we lost 3-2, I was there, and you could see when they scored the first goal, he goes to his, gets his assistant manager out. It's like, what are we going to do? We need to do something now. And then they score again, and he's like, okay, we really need to do something now. And they're still discussing it 10 minutes later when they score the third one. And I'm just like, come on. It's like, you need to respond faster to something like this happening. And I don't think we did. I'm not sure we actually had a plan for going 2-0 up against Chelsea.
No, I mean, that is perhaps unsurprising given Southampton's form. But yeah, I mean, those are all fair points. And also, I mean, this is the thing. We were very, very quick on Twitter and I'm saying the collective we as Southampton fans, we're very quick to warn Leicester City fans about Claude Puel. when he first joined there, they were like, they had a good run, and they scored a few goals, and things were looking pretty rosy for Cornwall. And all the Southampton fans were kind of going, "Yeah, be careful. The guy is probably not what you're hoping for." And it's got to the end of the season. I think Leicester finished 8th or 9th in the table, and it looks like Puel's quite likely to lose his job again. And it's because of the kind of turgid style of football.
But do you know they are the top goal scorers outside the top 6?
I mean, that doesn't surprise me. I mean,
So
they
it's
did manage
not
to
that
get
turgid, is
I mean,
it?
they did manage to get 4 goals in their final game, at Wembley, which was
You're
pretty
4 against
impressive.
us at St Mary's.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not talk about that fixture too much.
And so like basically my point is Hughes was good for 8 games, like good in the situation that we were in, but I don't want to be in that situation again. And I think we can attract a good manager that can come in and spend some of this money that we blatantly do have now, because we've still got 50 million sitting on our bank balance from the Virgil van Dijk transfer, and bring in some good players and do something like Ronald Koeman did, where he came in from a different league, brought in 2 or 3 of the best players from that league, and turned us into a really good side that would beat the top clubs. And you go to every game expecting to win, not go to every game dreading it. And also the other thing that really sets warning signs is that I think when he was manager of Stoke around about Christmas, and you looked at him do his post-match interviews, and that was a man who was a broken manager. He didn't want to be there, and I don't want him to do that. I don't want him to be in that position next season for us, where we do look for. I'd much rather he be that good striker that we had for a few years, and that manager that did what he needed to do,
and then moved on,
and rather than spoil what I think was a good period. But I don't think he's going to make us a top 10 team next season.
I mean, he did have Stoke finish 9th 3 seasons consecutively. I mean, obviously this season didn't go well for him.
But if you look at, I think there's bigger things than Mark Hughes happening at Stoke, and that's quite clear from the interviews with Jack Butland and Charlie Adams in terms of the players they signed. So, yeah, I agree. I don't think he is a Thomas Tuchel. But
he's just hasn't he just signed for PSG?
Yeah.
So,
but I don't think
we're not going to get that.
But I think, realistically, who are we going to get? And we might get a foreign coach, which seems more exciting. But I think one of the things we're seeing is that the Premier League, there's actually probably a lot of value in someone who just understands the Premier League. And Mark Hughes has got 3rd, 4th most management in the Premier League.
I do wonder if this is another. If you're looking at the horizon of what is Southampton Football Club, what's the Southampton way, what is the ambition of this club now? Because when we had Cortese here, it was, we're going to become a Champions League club, and he was doing everything in his power to kind of get us towards that way, which, I mean, obviously the Lieber family didn't like in the end, because financially it was causing issues for the club, but it was working on the football pitch. And a lot of us really enjoyed the football we had when Cortese was in charge, and Brian Pochettino was an absolute masterstroke. Things did were really great under Koeman, but can we realistically expect to be in that kind of 8th and 7th? It's essentially it's like winning the 2nd division. If we say the top 6 is the 1st division in English football, and then basically 7th is the top of the next group of clubs.
If you look, when we finished 6th, for us to finish 6th, one of the top 6 teams has to have a terrible season. Yeah. And
2 of them did.
2 of them did. And someone who normally is nowhere near that has to have an unexpectedly brilliant season. Yeah. Obviously, that was Leicester. So I think that was the season we finished 6th.
Yeah,
I think.
That's right.
So I think it's very tricky. One thing I would say is I don't necessarily think it's all about money. I think all the clubs have a lot of money now. Look at Everton. Everton are the club where you could say they're going to be the 7th place club. They've got a ton of money. They've spent most of it very poorly. And unless they can drastically overhaul their recruitment policy, they will continue to spend money really badly.
I mean, I think Southampton are kind of in the top 20 richest clubs in Europe, which is just pretty much by the fact that they're in the Premier League. But I mean, okay, financially we're never going to compete with the top six, and the financial fair play rules ensure that the rich will stay rich and the poor will stay poor. You know, that's what they were set up to do, you know, to protect the big six and big clubs across Europe. But, you know, what do we expect from Southampton? Because essentially, if you said Mark Hughes guarantee you ninth for 3 seasons in a row, then you'll have to give him a change. I think a lot of Saints fans might take that now. But there'd be quite a lot of Saints fans that would say, no, you know, actually I want to have the risk. I want to try a little bit harder, see if we can do something a bit more interesting.
I think Saints
Do we want mid-table obscurity?
I don't think ninth is mid-table obscurity. I think that we have to...
Ninth's pretty impressive.
Ninth's very impressive. And with a 32,000 seater capacity stadium, ninth is good. Not in London as well, which makes it instantaneously harder to attract the very, very best players. I think what Saints... I mean, I can't talk for all Saints fans, but me personally, I think we want to see an exciting, passionate style of play with young players coming through. And I think if you give Saints fans that, and the odd, you know, the wins against Arsenal, the wins against Chelsea, the wins against Spurs, Man United that we were getting previously, I think you'll have a happy group of fans.
Right, so James, you're in charge of Southampton. You've sacked Mark Hughes. Who are you bringing in?
You're a tyrant, James.
I don't know who I'll bring in. I don't have one on the list.
And I think that's kind of the crux of the problem. I mean, if I was to bring in a sexy foreign manager, it would be Marcelo Bielsa, who I've talked about before. You know, big influence on Pochettino. Plays a pressing style of football. I just find pressing style of football good fun to watch. So I mean, that's who I would choose if we're going to go for a sexy foreign name. But I think Hughes deserves a shot. He at least deserves a season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where Bielsa is now, but last I think he was at Seville.
I think he was getting sacked from Lille last time.
Yeah. So, you know,
I mean, it's not all roses with Bielsa.
No, yeah, and we know the pressing side of football is brilliant until about 83 minutes, in which case, and then it gets quite tiring.
Not that we've been great after about 83 minutes this season either.
No, it's true.
But we're going to get on to that. Right, so let's move on. So Mark Hughes, he's done his job. He gets his £1 million bonus. Certainly very welcome to it in my eyes. Let's talk about our other manager this season, Maurizio Pellegrino. What was wrong with him?
You can take this one first, I think.
Okay. I don't think he showed passion. I don't think he knew what he was doing. I think he knew how he was going to set up his team and play the game that he wanted to play. But when things didn't go his way, or like when we went 65 minutes without scoring a goal, he didn't try to change things.
No.
And that was I think that was the biggest problem. And I don't know, he didn't look like he didn't look passionate. And he definitely lost quite a lot of the players in the dressing room. Not all of them. There was certainly a few players that we will mention later that were heroes this season. Doesn't matter how much they disapproved of the management, how crappy a time they were playing, they still turned up on the pitch, they still chased the ball, they still gave it their all. But no, Pellegrino was awful. And it's the thing, why would you not react? I don't understand why you just go, oh, it's 0-0, we're playing Burnley at home, and it's 70 minutes in. No, I'm just going to let it... And we haven't really created that many chances. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just leave it as it is. It's like, or even like Swansea at the start of the season where we were all over them, and you're like, well, let's just throw on some more strike and let's just try and just shout at them. Go on, push it a bit more because they're on their back. All you have to do is finish them off.
Tom, what about you? What was it? What was?
I think there was a few things. I think passion is one thing. I think maybe we underestimate how difficult the job is, and how paralysed by fear he was. And I think paralysed is the right word. I remember the first game I went to this season was the Burnley game at home that James was just referencing, and you could see up against sort of a very wily Premier League manager in Sean Dyche, he just was paralysed. And paralysed is a strong word to use, but if at the end of the day, if you see a situation unfolding in front of you and you do nothing to prevent it, then there's no other word for it. And I think we saw it so many times this season. Crystal Palace at home, 1-0 up, they start to win the ball more in midfield. he just didn't change things.
No.
We saw it with players. He was paralysed. Fraser Forster was clearly not right. Kept playing. Gabbiadini wasn't working that system. Charlie Austin's proven goal scorer. Couldn't get a sniff. Højbjerg, Danish international, ex-Bayern Munich, can't get a sniff. You do wonder. I think he was just... I just think he's like... There's no other nice way to put it. He's just massively out of his depth.
I agree. I think he was totally out of his depth. I think he lacked clarity as well, or the ability... I think there was a big issue in terms of the way that he was able to communicate with the players. If you go back to that episode when I interviewed him, I didn't have very long with him. I was able to ask him kind of like 2 or 3 questions, including kind of, what was going wrong? Where did he expect Southampton to be finishing in the season? And he just waffled his way through the answers. And you wonder... they were quite simple questions. You do wonder, like, what would happen if a player asked him a question? Would he get a clear answer out of Pellegrino? Would Pellegrino be able to give clear directions to the players and tell them how they were supposed to be playing? Was he able to even impose his style, whatever that might have been, on the players? I mean, I just don't know. I just wasn't convinced by anything. I mean, his in-game management was clearly poor. I think he genuinely lacks that leadership quality that you need as a manager.
I wonder if he had that impression on the players, because he had a good playing career, but he didn't have a great playing career, although he was very successful. And I wonder if he was
a good player in some quite excellent teams, wasn't he? In some excellent clubs, and
he won things. But I don't know if he had that wow factor that went with it.
I mean, what's quite interesting, I think it was like one of the Neville brothers mentioned that they never... Was it one of the Neville brothers? They mentioned they never thought Pellegrino... No, it can't have... It must have been Jamie Carragher. Never thought Pellegrino would make it as a manager because he was so disorganised. He'd never met anyone who was that disorganised. Which is quite strange because he didn't come across as particularly disorganised when I met him. And he also came across as very popular within the club, which I think... maybe explain some of the dithering over why it took so long for him to get sacked. And in terms of the sacking Pellegrino, I think we all would have chosen to have done it, probably on Boxing Day, given Saints a Christmas present.
And also there was time, I think, didn't we? Had time between games. Yeah. Kind of made sense.
But actually, you read the interview that Kruger's given and... he talks about having his responsibility and basically that they didn't kind of really realise how much trouble they were in. That the draws kind of made them feel like they were kind of on the cusp of something good. Whereas we were watching the draws and realising that we weren't getting wins because we weren't good enough to get over the line. The board was seeing something different. And
I agree. And I also think Pellegrino thought that as well. I think Pellegrino saw all of the draws as, we're not just losing. We're just a bit unlucky, and he didn't seem to. He never really seemed that panicked at any point, or angry, and at the performances in the league position. And
actually, that's what we needed. We needed an angry Mark Hughes to come in and put the boot up the proverbial backside.
But also, you needed bad eggs gone. And I think, we will speak about it a bit more later, but there's clearly in the interview today with Kruger, clearly he's alluding to Van Dijk in terms of the disruption that caused. And actually, it might be that's one person's fault. That's one person's only. It's Kruger for allowing that situation to happen.
Pellegrino actually had to try and deal with that himself, didn't he? And made him train with the under-23s.
You imagine how big a personality someone like Van Dijk is, the belief and ego. And I don't mean ego in a bad way, because I think to be a footballer of that level, you have to have a level of ego. You imagine like the gravitas someone like Van Dijk carries in that squad. Probably the only truly world-class player in that squad. Yes, of course, Van Dijk should have been more professional. Yes, of course, he shouldn't have sulked. But at the end of the day, the club have to face facts that they should have, for an extra £10 million in transfer fee, they risked their Premier League status. And that was a crazy thing to do.
I'm going to read you... I think we can move on from Pellegrino and get onto the board, which ultimately the main problem with Pellegrino was the fact that he was firstly selected as manager and then secondly left in that position in their headlights for so long, which then we have to look at Les Reed and Ralph Kruger. Here's a quote from the article in the Telegraph today, and we're recording on the 15th of May.
Southampton's in-house newspaper, the Daily Telegraph.
So it says, this is from Kruger. We consolidated our squad last summer. We didn't sell anyone we didn't want to sell for the first time. Retrospectively, we gave up our Southampton way of building a team. We stopped the pathway through to the big teams, did things out of character. For a club like Southampton, everything begins with a group of players who really want to be here. Let's go back to that. We should have also been quicker in our response to all the early season draws. I don't think we felt the desperation enough. That kind of like sums up those points that we've been picking up there as the problems with the Pellegrino time. Is that enough for Southampton fans, Kruger? Is that as close as a chairman gets to an apology and saying we got things wrong?
I think it's weird. I think I think this interview means one thing. I think this means Mark Hughes is definitely going to be the announcers manager, because I think unless that was going to happen, I don't think you'd put yourself up for that. And also, if you look, there's very few questions actually about the manager, which obviously suggests that the Telegraph have been given the nod. But if we go back to that quote, there is one kind of very strange aspect. We didn't sell anyone we don't want to sell for the first time. That's great. Retrospectively, we stopped our Southampton way of building a team. We stopped the pathway through to the big teams, did things out of character. Now, he talks about that and it's like that's a good thing, stopping the pathway through. And I don't know if it is a good thing. I think, of course, we don't want to have wholesale changes every single summer, but a player like Van Dijk, who will always be criticised by Saints fans, but if we're all honest, he's the best defender that most of us will ever see in our lifetime. Playing
best defender we've ever had.
He should have let him go through, because I actually think that sends a signal. Because it sends a signal, a number of things. It sends a signal to the outside world that Southampton is not a stepping stone is used like a derisory term. It's not. It shouldn't be. But it also sends a signal that we can not only sign these players in the first place, but we can tie them down to long-term contracts, and we can make other teams pay top dollar for them. And so I don't think that's necessarily a negative.
So I mean, the agent is looking at that, knowing that a club like Southampton is willing to sell with a 5-year contract in place, which means that the agent and the player fees are going to be astronomical when it comes to the transfer fee. But an agent is looking at if an agent can get a decent player like Van Dijk into Southampton, get him to play for 2 seasons there, get 50 million plus for the following transfer. That's multi-million pounds, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't agree. Of course, like it would be in a perfect world, Saints would never sell anyone except the players they absolutely wanted to sell. But that's not how it works. Every single club on the planet, apart from probably Paris Saint-Germain, Madrid, and Barcelona, are selling clubs. If those 3 clubs want your player, they will get them. So
even Liverpool had to suck that up this season.
Even Liverpool had to suck it up. And I think so. I don't think the idea of us being a stepping stone is this terrible thing. If we're a stepping stone and we do it that suits us.
And actually, I think in that quote, he suggests that we probably are going to go back to the Southampton way. So I expect we are probably going to move on a few players this season, and going to bring in a few players this season. And maybe that's where Southampton's strength lies. Maybe it's the constant refreshing and rebooting, and
maybe it's an acknowledgement of the damage the bad eggs can do.
Yeah, it's not bad having a new player that the other teams don't know how to defend against. I think this season, if you looked at the 11 players that started in August last year, it was basically the same 11 players that you would have expected Claude Puel to play, and therefore, the manager knows. They've already done their scouting job on all of these players. They already know how they play. They know what dangers they created. And therefore, by not bringing anyone new that's like an unknown, it makes the job easier for the opposing team. And I think we should always have three new players, maybe more, to bring on, and people don't know how to play against them.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And now I put this question out to our followers on Twitter. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's @SaintsFC Podcast on Twitter. And I put the question: if Les and Ralph came out and said they had learned from their mistakes this season and ensure they won't be making them again, would you be happy for them to stay based on the relative success of previous seasons? Or was this season unforgivable. There's a real mix of responses here. A lot of people do think it was totally unforgivable. And a lot of them kind of alluded to the fact they didn't think that they'd actually learn from their mistakes. So if you picked up the Sam Wallace piece a few days ago in the Telegraph again, they were kind of championing the signing of Bednarek and the appointment of Hughes, like, this is a season to be celebrated, which, okay, there was some small kind of glimmers of hope in this season that had gone well, but that didn't sound like they'd learned their lesson. This interview sounds quite a lot more humble just in the space of a few days. I mean, I wonder if someone from the Southampton press team's seen this tweet, because it did get quite a lot of traction. They maybe thought, actually, we need to be a little bit more humble and a little bit less bolshy in the way that we speak to our fans in the press. So 1885, the heart of, he alluded to the Sam Wallace piece. Shirley Mush, who sometimes... We're
a big fan of,
he writes some
very erudite
excellent,
analysis.
Good pieces. He just says, it's amazing that so many fans think a PE teacher from Wapping is this Machiavellian figure who signs all the checks. Reed is just the head teacher trying to keep a school afloat while the higher-ups mess about with a budget and whatnot, and then goes on to say that Kruger is your equivalent of Michael Gove. And
he swears a bit more times.
Yeah, he does. I gave you the clean version there. Shirley Mush, I know he's a Labour supporter, so when he's talking about Michael Gove, he's not talking about a positive thing there. Also got Paul O'Connor. I think Les Reed is the culprit, whereas Ralph, on the other hand, could give us links in the USA and maybe generate some more money and contacts off the field. Lynn Baskerville chips in with be careful with what you wish for. So, it really is a real mix here. Lots of people are saying that this season was unforgivable, and the fact that we sailed so close to disaster was unforgivable, and probably mainly because we could all see it happening as fans. That was frustrating. But then you go back and you say,
the players, come on, fundamentally, do the players not shoulder any of this blame? Of course, Les Reed and Kruger should have made some better decisions, and yes, they could have made a more inspired appointment. Is it Les Reed and Kruger against Huddersfield at home that can't defend a simple cross into the box and leave a 6'4" forward 3 yards out for a free header? No. Is it Kruger and Reed that are trying to Cruyff turn away at Bournemouth when we were 1-0 up and we give the ball away and we can see 1-0? How many?
So Wesley Hoot is to blame for this season.
But what I mean is of course, they could have made better decisions, but fundamentally, we're not a bad team, right? We're not a bad team. We have made so many unenforced errors this season, and that's what's cost us. If we'd have got the ball out of the box, and we should have got the ball out of the box, and just been a bit stronger mentally, we'd have probably finished about 10th, and this whole season would have been totally fine.
James, what are your thoughts? Kruger, Reed, the players?
Well, I think we can give Reed and Kruger a fair amount of grief, because I think they did sail us. They did fly too close to the sun. I think they were drinking their own Kool-Aid a bit too much. But I do think
what do you mean by that? Drinking their own? Do you mean just they believe their own hype?
Yeah, they believe their own hype.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I believe their hype to some extent, because they have Les Reed especially. He has taken us from a lowly team that's been a mess and taken us up to the Premier League and kept us in the Premier League for 4 or 5 seasons now, and that's no mean feat.
Does that say?
The last account of, we've been in the Premier League 5 seasons now in this stint, and the first season we struggled, but we were expected to struggle, and the other 3 seasons we played reasonable. We were a solid team. At worst, we were a solid team. At worst, we were hard to beat, and that should be good enough. Because if you look at the other teams that went down this season. If you look at Swansea, West Brom, Stoke, they sound like they've got complete and utter idiots running their football clubs. Signing a player like Berahino, really?
Yeah.
At least our bad signings, to be fair, you could say Bufal's a bad signing. He actually doesn't appear to be like a negative influence until very recently. I think you're absolutely right. Look at some of the Stoke signings. Have been awful. Players that are on, not their fault, but they're on compassionate leave. They've never been seen at the club again. Yeah. Players like Vimmer, Afalai, who are training with the school kids. Record signings that have just been shipped out on loan almost as soon as they've arrived. We've had some players, yes, that haven't lived up to the hype, but they're not anywhere near as disastrous, I think, as you could say about some of the other team signings. So I do think that I think they're worth another chance. I think we all screw up at work. They've not paid. Saints haven't paid the ultimate punishment of being relegated. I do think I don't think they were brave to bring in Hughes.
Yeah, I think they brought in the right manager at the right time.
I'd give them another go.
Okay, I mean, I'm just going to kind of like say, I think everyone's kind of agreed that if Kruger and Reid have kind of come out, or Kruger has, and publicly kind of said, yeah, we got things wrong. And he's also said, he's backed Les Reid, and Les Reid is actually going for a job with the FA, which he might well get. And if you point back at his CV for Southampton, up until this season, it has been incredibly successful. So Les Reid joined the club back in 2010. So for those of you with a good enough memory, you'll remember that was the season that we got promoted, 2010-11, we got promoted from League One into the Championship. And so the players that he's been involved with, if we presume that he's been bringing players the whole time, from that first season, bringing people like Danny Butterfield, De Prado, Richard Chaplow, also Jack Stevens came in at that time, and then so you're talking about all the players that have come in since then as well: Maurizio Pochettino, Ronald Koeman, Sadio Mane, Dusan Tadic, Graziano Pella,
Virgil van Dijk,
Toby Alderweireld, Fraser Forster, who I know this season had a terrible season but has been fantastic for Saints previously. His record over the full stretch of the 8 years that he's been with Southampton is exceptionally good. And as long as he's willing to, not drink the Kool-Aid, as you say, James, not to believe his own hype, and continue working hard at leading that kind of football decisions and being that director of football role, and understand that, he hasn't solved football and that there is still some work to be done and that you can still sometimes be found out and caught up, then I think they're worth a little bit more of a go. And to be honest, it's all down to Gal anyway.
Yeah, and who knows what Gal's intentions are? Who has got? I mean, no one knows. Probably not even Kruger and Reid. So, but what is probably quite right is he won't want to upset the cash cow. And right now the cash cow is looking good.
Yeah, the cash cow was very, very, very nearly upset.
It was nearly put out to pasture.
Okay, so I mean, those are some kind of big season topics. I mean, do we want to get onto draws, losses? I mean, what?
I don't know. We kind of.
Why don't? Okay, so let's skip forward to an email that we received from Sean Clark.
It's a good email.
So Sean Clark basically emailed in, and his main concern really was about the amount of points that we've thrown away. He said in extra time, but I'm going to extend this to 80 minutes onwards. In extra time, he kind of notes that obviously we lost a point to Man City, lost a point to Everton, lost a point to Man City again. So twice we did that. And then he also doesn't mention Doucouré, which he didn't blame on Southampton. He blames it on the ref. But I mean, this is an interesting point that Sean has picked up here, and also a chap called St. Harris on Twitter. St. Harris kind of compiled all of the goals that we've conceded after the 80th minute and kind of what that's cost Southampton. So I'm going to go through this. Stoke 2 and Southampton 1 with Crouch with an 85th minute goal. City 2, Southampton 1. Sterling with a 97th minute goal.
That was a heartbreaker, that one.
Really was a killer. Vokes, we talked about the Burnley game at home, and we conceded 81st minute. Arsenal 1-1 at home. Giroud getting a goal in the 88th minute. Watford 2-2, Doucouré. I mean,
cheats.
Whether you blame that on Southampton or not, I don't know. The Palace game where we lost at home, having been in the lead. I can't even say his name, but Milovic.
Milovic, yeah.
He got a goal in the last kind of 10 minutes. Arsenal 3-2 at the Emirates. That loss, we were 2-2 with 10 minutes to go. He got that goal in the last 10 minutes. Everton, we had Davis with a 97-minute sucker punch, that goal for the equaliser. And then on Sunday we had Jesus coming in and not saving Southampton in the 94th minute. So that's 12 points dropped in the last 10 minutes of the game, and I think 1 or 2 points gained in the last 10 minutes or the last 2 minutes of the game.
What did we gain? We gained the win against West Ham. I think that's the only goal we scored late, maybe.
I think you're right, Tom. So that's 12 points dropped. Is that fitness? Is that concentration? Is that tactics? Is that what?
I don't know. Like, if you look at, I don't know. To be honest, I can't remember the Crouch goal. But there are many.
It was very scrappy.
It was very scrappy. Yeah, it's classic Peter Crouch goal. But I think if you look at, there's many reasons why there. Let's just pick a few. Sterling's goal was a world-class goal. We've done so well. Sterling's goal was unstoppable. He'd have scored that goal with any team on the planet. Vok's goal was because we had terrible decision-making and terrible game management from the manager. Mihailovic, again, terrible decision-making. Should never even been in a position where that was even feasible. Davis, you could argue a combination of poor clearance from Bertrand, terrible refereeing decision. Yeah, I don't think there's any one reason.
But to be honest, I think if we're going to pick a theme here, Vokes, Giroud, Mihailovic, Welbeck, you could argue it. Davis, you could kind of argue it. Terrible defending is the strongest.
Yeah. Panicking.
Yeah. Blind panic.
Yeah.
It's also, we've had a problem all season, and again, you know, I don't have numbers for this, but the sheer number of goals we've conceded from pretty average crosses into the box. I mean, if you look at the games, the game against Huddersfield, we were 1-0 up. The game against Brighton, when we were 1-0 up. Even like the Decore handball, you know, we've conceded some really bang average goals this year that you have to say, if like a Van Dijk was there, we wouldn't have conceded.
They don't happen. Well, they rarely happen when Virgil van Dijk was on the
and Fonte. And I wonder if that's it. I wonder if it's leadership.
Well, I mean, there's two things there. I mean, Van Dijk, last time I checked, was still the most successful headerer of the ball in Southampton's season. I mean, and that was despite probably the worst 6 months it wasn't even that, probably 3 months we've ever had out of Van Dijk. He was abject this season, and yet he was still the best, the most
consistently good.
But to be fair, even an abject Van Dijk is still better than what we've got, really. And the weird thing is, we've managed to assemble three centre backs. Bednarek probably the only exception. None of which can head the ball. Like Yoshida, Stevens, and Hoyt. Hoyt in particular is terrible in the air.
I mean, which is bizarre as well, because Stevens and Hoyt have shown that, like, when they're in an attacking situation, they do seem to be able to head the ball. Anyway, I think, another interesting thing to come to, and it's a thing that I've brought up a few times this season, is the XG table, which I think, actually, if we're going to talk about the effect that Alex McCarthy's had on the side, we were talking about Saints having conceded so many more goals than they should have done via the XG table whilst Fraser Force was still in the side. Alex McCarthy, it stayed pretty much the same. So he's kind of done the job that you'd expect a goalkeeper to do. So obviously Southampton have finished 17th, which I think is the first winner in the Premier League. If we'd scored the goals that our chances that we created should have led to goals. So basically, XG, just as a reminder, it rates the value of the chances. So if you have a good chance, you have a high XG. If you have a half chance, it's low XG. Southampton would have finished in the top half of the table if we'd converted the chances that we should have done and also defended the chances that we should have done. So Manchester City were top of the table, rather unsurprising. Then Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United in 6th. Interestingly, the big difference with Manchester United is David De Gea. They should have conceded 15 more goals.
Jesus.
Wow.
So, that shows you the value of De Gea.
And also, he's virtually played every single game, so that is purely him.
Here's another interesting one. Crystal Palace would then be 7th. Leicester City 8th, which I think is correct. And Southampton would be 9th if, our strikers converted the goals that they should have done and our keepers should have saved the chances that they should have done. Which maybe points to kind of our frailties, that defensive and that front line. But who knows?
Well, I don't think it's... if you stop 100 Saints fans this season, they would tell you that. Some of the goals we've conceded have been terrible. Centre forwards peeling off to end up on Cedric, who I think is about the same height as me, and players like Glenn Murray just being able to, to easily outjump him. So I don't think it's not rocket science, is it? We're just terrible at defending balls into the box.
So how are we going to rectify this all next season?
Alfie Mawson.
So are we going to get on straight into that?
I think
right, you're Les Reed, you're director of football, just for the next few moments on the podcast. Which players are you going to be getting rid of? Which areas are you looking to strengthen? And if you have some names, even just one in and one out, I'm interested.
So I would... I think we'd keep Fraser as a second choice goalkeeper. I think he's a good second choice goalkeeper. Players out for me. I don't think Buffon has a future at the club. I don't think Carrillo has a future at the club. I do think we need to sign another centre forward, and I think it depends on the style we want to play. I would say if we are genuinely wanting to play like a big lump up front, someone like Sam Vokes, who can bring in players around him, who's good in the air, hold the ball up. I would, and I think we do absolutely need a centre back, and I think we need an old school. We should have bought Harry Maguire. That was the mistake we made, but I do think someone like Alfie Mawson, I think Gibson from Middlesbrough was a very good player. I think we just, sometimes we just need to learn to lump it.
I mean, that's not sexy. They're not sexy names that you've brought up there, Tom, are they?
We've got Tadic, we've got Redmond, we've got Lamina. We've got players that can do the sexy stuff. What we actually lack is just basics.
Yeah.
We need players that can just defend across.
And of course, if you get Sam Vokes in as well, which is your kind of frontline option, that means that you can tell the story about your mum knowing Sam Vokes.
Yeah, Penny Vokes.
Yeah.
She's listening. Hi, Penny.
James, what about you?
I think we need a defender. I think we need a central defender. We need someone who's big, who's strong, and can head the ball, obviously, and can tackle as well. Tackling's great.
I've heard that.
not standing and giving them 5 yards. But yeah, I think we definitely need a centre back, especially if we're going to if Mark Hughes stays, then we probably need 2 centre backs because we're going to play 3 at the back. I also think we need a striker, and I don't think Carrillo's given us what we wanted. I think it's a pretty bad decision.
I feel sorry for him.
I mean, he could. You never know. He could actually. He came into an awful team that didn't know how to supply him with the ball in the way he wanted, and maybe over the summer, if he stays, they'll work that out on the training ground, and we might have a good player there. Like a big, strong, attacking, like another Pella, someone who's big.
A Sam Vokes?
Yeah, someone who can bring the ball down and pass it on to one of our faster players, and that's the second bit that we need. The third bit we need is we need another really good attacking winger. Another, obviously you can't expect to sign Sadio Mane every time, but someone who can just...
Like Quincy Promes.
Yeah. Or I would have happily taken Theo Walcott. Shout out to Pellegrino for telling the whole world all of our transfer targets before we'd signed them. I'm pretty sure when Everton heard him go, we're gonna try and get Walcott, they then went, we should probably wrap this Walcott thing up then, and say,
I mean, it's interesting. I think we probably need a centre forward. I agree that we need another attacking, kind of fast-paced attacking midfielder. You know, someone to kind of connect the Lamina, Højbjerg, Romeo type to whoever's kind of leading the front line. Totally agree on the centre back. I mean, we need another centre back. Bednarek, though,
He looks great.
He looks really good. I mean, we saw him play against
Great
Wolverhampton Wanderers, I think, very early on in the season as we were kind of unceremoniously dumped out of the League Cup. And I don't think any of us thought that we would be getting to the end of the season going, well, you know, this Bednarek guy, he's pretty good.
I remember when the Chelsea team was announced, and you thought Bednarek and it was Morata. I was like, oh god, this could be bad.
But yeah, so I think I love our centre backs as people. You know, I think.
Yeah, you're right.
I think if you're going to go and have like, you know, a nice, a really kind of interesting, fun evening in the pub, if you went with our 4 centre backs, I think you would definitely get that. I think Maya Yoshida would be hilarious. I think Wesley Hu would be like kind of a nutter. I think Jack Stevens would be hilarious, and I think Bednarek would be as well.
Oh yeah, did you guys all see Jack Stevens try and whip down Tadic's pants in front of the whole crowd?
Tadic had a little panic attack. But maybe you strike on something there, which is maybe they're just too bloody nice.
Yeah.
You know, maybe like your Yoshidas and your Jack Stevens. And I think, don't get me wrong, I love Jack Stevens, and I think that Jack Stevens is going to end up being a top quality centre back, and this season will only have done him good. But maybe they're just too nice.
We need a bastard leader in there.
Yeah, you need like a. Do you remember like Matt Elliott, who used to play for Leicester?
Psychopath.
You need like someone like that who just kicks people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we did used to have players that did that. I think Dejan Lovren was quite good at a well-timed foul outside the box.
And Bonte was another one.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's go through it. I think we need. I don't know if I like Alex McCarthy again. I really used to love Fraser Forster, but I think if we brought in a really top quality goalkeeper, I don't think that would be a bad thing. Maybe we could look to Mark Hughes' old club.
But also also like if you're Saints, they run those financially quite tight. They now know that Forster's probably not going to be first choice next season. By everything you've read this season, Forster's the highest paid player at Saints. Are they going to look to get those wages off the bill? I imagine they'll bet they will.
Quite possibly. They won't get much of a return on that. And who's going to play Fraser Forster the same amount that we're paying him?
West Ham.
Newcastle.
Okay.
Actually, maybe not Newcastle. They don't pay anyone.
There's 2 good shouts there. I think our left back and our right back position, they both might be off this season. I'd expect Cedric and Bertrand probably both to leave this season. Is Matty Targett going to come back from Fulham, or is he going to be sold out there? Who do we bring in those positions?
I don't know if we necessarily. I think if we lost
Jeremy
Bertrand, I like Jeremy Piet. I think that if we lost Bertrand, and I think Bertrand will go, and I think Bertrand should go with the best wishes of Saints fans, because Spurs are clearly looking to ship off Danny Rose. Bertrand is a natural replacement. I think McQueen. I'd like to see McQueen given a go. I think if we're going to play an aggressive, fast, almost winger essentially, then I think McQueen is that player. But what you would lose is that incredible experience that Bertrand provides.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps if we're going to play the 3-5-2, the Cedric and Bertrand positions, you could almost look at who are the Southampton youth players that like to play right wing and left wing. Let's give them a chance there where the defensive responsibilities aren't that high because you're going to have 3 at the back, where there is opportunity to get forward, and they can also kind of like hone down some Premier League skills. They're probably not, left wing back and right wing back. They can be very important parts of a team. We've not been too bad at producing left backs over there. I mean, you have to look back at Gareth Bale and Wayne Bridge as some pretty good quality, and Luke Shaw as well.
Yeah,
I think as well, the one they all talk about is Jan Valery.
Yeah,
the French kid. I think he's a right back for the youth team. Is meant to be really good, but obviously there's a huge difference. I do think Cedric will go. I think he's kind of made all the noises that he probably will go. The irony is I can't see him going anywhere really much better than Saints.
No. But maybe you can get a decent European Cup.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think he could probably play for a Portuguese side in the Champions League and something like that.
So looking across, I think for defensive midfielders, we've got more than our share that we need. I mean, if you offer me Schneiderlin back, I'd take him. But
yeah, but the problem is he's probably on so much money.
Yeah,
I'd like to see Harrison Reed come back.
Or Yordi Classy. Which out of those two would you take either of them back?
I'll take Harrison Reed. Harrison Reed's looked good every time I've seen him in the Championship. He's a good footballer.
So Yordi Classy, we can sack off. Bruges can keep him as far as you guys are concerned.
Yeah.
Highest win ratio of all recent Saints players.
That was incredible.
And then, so looking across the attacking midfield, we've got Nathan Redmond, we've got James Ward-Prowse, we've got Dusan Tadic,
Josh Sims.
We've got Josh Sims. We've got Jake Hesker.
Stephen
Davis. Do we need a little bit of extra blood in there? I think we probably need an extra. I think we need a
goal scorer, don't you?
We need an extra really good player in that lot, don't we?
Yeah, and I think
and who do we ship out from that? Is it going to be Davis and Redmond?
I feel Davis's time might come to an end, and I think that'll be sad. But you can kind of see him going to Rangers. You'd almost like he's been such a good servant for Saints, but I can't see him getting many more goals.
Isn't that where we signed him from?
Yeah, but he loves Rangers podcast. We've forgot Bufal, but I think we can take Bufal.
I think Bufal's definitely on his way.
He's on his way.
Yeah.
I do think we need a bit more quality in there, and I also think we need to find a home for Ward-Prowse. And we spoke about it so many times. Like, what is Ward-Prowse? He's not the box-to-box midfielder like Højbjerg and Lemina. He's not the enforcer like Romeu. So kind of what is a James Ward-Prowse? And and we spoke
Send your answers on a postcard at Saints FC
Yeah,
podcast,
but we spoke about a right
Saints
wing
FC
back.
podcast, Yeah,
we spoke about a right wing back.
But he can't. He can't tackle though.
Yeah, but you can't. Cedric can't really tackle that well. But
Yeah.
my God, can he cross the ball, Ward-Prowse?
Yeah.
And then, so let's go to our attacking three. We've got Charlie Austin, we've got Shane Long, we've got Manolo Gabbiadini, and we've got our record signing Guido Carrillo.
I think you'll see Shane Long leave. I think he needs a change of scene. It wouldn't surprise me if like someone like West Brom takes him back. In the Championship. Charlie Austin, we love him, but can't be trusted to be fit. Carrillo, God knows what Carrillo is. I'd like to see it, but then I can't see the way we play Gabbiadini fitting in, because Gabbiadini is not a battering ram centre forward.
I mean, in addition to this, we've got Sam Gallagher out on loan at Birmingham City. We had Obafemi, who had 10 minutes, against Tottenham Hotspur, and he looked all right as well. What's going to happen there? I think actually, it's funny because all four of those players have got qualities. They're kind of four first team attackers. They've all got qualities that you would like and appreciate. Charlie Austin, great goal scorer. Manolo Gabbiadini, incredible in the box, and we've seen what he can do. In some pretty amazing games last season. Shane Long. I mean,
I would keep Shane Long because I love him.
He's a great option, isn't he?
He's horrible.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I saw a member of the opposition team enjoy playing against Shane Long.
No. I wonder if you just keep Shane Long for Arsenal games.
Yeah, and Chelsea. Chelsea hates him as well.
But I think Shane Long is a fantastic substitute, and there's nothing wrong with being a fantastic substitute. Like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think he could be. He's a great player for us to have on the bench to make things difficult for opposition teams, and none of our other strikers gives us that.
Okay, so that's our transfers covered. I mean, I haven't given you guys a name, but my number one transfer target would be Ryan Sessegnon, but I think we've almost left it too late.
You
now.
and everyone else.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's probably going to go to someone better.
Quincy,
or play in the Premier League next season.
Yeah,
give him a week. Never know.
Mm.
I mean, Quincy Promes looks quite promising, doesn't he?
By all accounts. I mean, I can only say what I've seen on YouTube, and he does seem to have genuinely blistering pace, which is something we've probably not really had since Mane. Well, blistering pace combined with end product. And I love Redmond, but his end product is erratic.
Right, I've got one more topic of discussion before we get into our end of season Saints FC podcast awards, okay? And at the end of this week, there's going to be the Champions League final. Now, there's going to be a lot of ex-Southampton players in and around these two clubs, which is Real Madrid versus Liverpool, for those of you who are not interested in football outside of Southampton. Gareth Bale, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Adam Lallana, Virgil van Dijk, Nathaniel Klein, Dejan Lovren, and Sadio Mane. Obviously, most of them are at Liverpool. Obviously, Gareth Bale is at Real Madrid. The question I want to ask you two is, looking at those kind of ex-Southampton players that are in around that Champions League squad, have Southampton, over this kind of past decade, 5 years, I don't know whether you want to say it, have we missed out on our opportunity to be the Nottingham Forest that existed in 1979 and 1980, that an unfashionable provincial side became the best team in Europe just for a few moments? Have Southampton had that opportunity and not quite grasped it?
I think that's overstretching. I think where we missed was we could have won the league when Leicester won the league. I think the European Cup is now the quality of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Juventus, Bayern Munich. They're so far ahead.
But look at the players that are in the final.
Yeah, but also,
there's
playing
7 of them.
Yeah, but they're playing with Salah. They're playing with Firmino. They've been playing with Coutinho. They've been playing with unbelievable
Cristiano
Ronaldo, Isco. They've been playing with unbelievable players. I think that I think the Champions League thing is a misnomer. I think that because it's almost too much luck involved. Where we should have won if we were going to do anything, it was when Leicester won the league. Because Leicester, pound for pound, players were no better than ours. Maybe Mahrez, the only one aside. And I think that should have been us.
Yeah, I think if we kept some players, Premier League title, I think, there's a lot of luck going on there. There's a lot of other teams playing badly. All of the good teams had bad season that season.
My argument would be, though, that the Premier League is actually more difficult to win than the Champions League. The Champions League has got more luck. The players are big. But on a cup game over 2 legs, you can beat a team that's better than you. In the Premier League, what Leicester City did was absolutely incredible. It's amazing. And for supporters of table or middling clubs or whatever, teams outside the big 6, Leicester winning the league was one of the greatest things we've seen in English football for certainly a long time. But you cannot ignore the fact that there's going to be probably 26 players involved in that Champions League final, and there's a good chance that 6 of them are going to have been ex-Southampton players. And you can't escape that fact. They are there playing in the most important game of the season.
But doesn't this
kind of World Cup final.
Doesn't this kind of call back to one of your earlier questions about Les Reed? There's a symbol of Les Reed's success. Let's look at that list: Mane, Lovren, Klein, Van Dijk, all players that were signed during the Les Reed reign. Bale, Ox, and Lallana, pretty sure Southampton Academy when rejoined in 2010.
Yeah.
So
they are pre-Reed. Yeah.
They're about pre-Reed, but they came to the forefront under Reed's management of the club. I think that we're blessed, aren't we? We should look at that, and we should be really proud on in a couple of weeks in Kiev when if someone like Lallana or Gareth Bale or Oxlade-Chamberlain, one of the homegrown lads, does something really special.
Shouldn't we be angry at the club for missing this opportunity? Because I get it. People say, well, if we hadn't have sold so-and-so, then we wouldn't have bought so-and-so. But actually, if you'd built up that momentum, you'd started moving up into the Premier League. Let's say you'd finished 3rd. Let's say Tottenham Hotspur. Okay, so they're a bigger club in terms of finances. They're based in London, blah, blah, blah. But they were not the most fashionable club in the world, and they're now attracting kind of bigger stars. But, if it wasn't Van Dijk, you could have had Alderweireld in there. We've also had Morgan Schneidlin. We've also had Victor Wanyama. We've also had Luke Shaw come through the academy. We've also had Callum Chambers, who we could have held on to. There's a lot of players that you could fit around those 7 and have a really wonderful team that I think would finish in the top 4 every season.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a simple we had for example, take Bale. We had to sell Bale because the club was in massive financial difficulty. I don't think it's as simple as we would like it to be, and I think that in some ways, I've said it before, Saints fans, we've been spoilt by some of the quality of players that have come through and that have signed for our club, and this season, bit of a wake up call, but yeah, got some great players. I don't know, like just great players there, and I know that like we all hate Liverpool, but wouldn't it be great to see someone like Adam Lallana, who I know that we all don't like anymore, but like
wouldn't it be better to see Gareth Bale?
Wouldn't it be better to see Gareth Bale? Yeah, I don't know, win another European Cup.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And also, by the way, apparently Saints get £10 million if Liverpool.
I know. I
Champions League.
think this is an interesting question. I'm not sure who I'm supporting, whether I'm supporting Gareth Bale or whether I'm supporting Oxlade-Chamberlain, Lallana, Van Dijk, Lovren, Klein, blah blah blah. But because I like Mane. I really like Mane. I like Oxlade-Chamberlain. I quite like Nathaniel Klein. Virgil van Dijk, I really
Also,
dislike.
I've spent all season saying Van Dijk has sold himself short by going to Liverpool, and if he wins the Champions League, it shows I know nothing, which is true. But yeah,
but yeah, I mean, that's a question for Saints FC fans. Knowing that Liverpool winning the Champions League final would guarantee an extra £10 million for Southampton.
That's half a Carrillo, people. That's half a Carrillo.
That is what, a Geordie Classy?
That's a Geordie Classy.
Okay, so I mean, you can support whoever you like, then, don't we? Let's face it. We've missed out on going down to the Championship and having our budget reduced from £150 million from TV rights down to about 50 million, whatever it was.
And that's as good as it gets. 50 million. It goes progressively a lot worse after that, doesn't it?
Okay, so I mean, who wants to sing me a little jingle for the Saints FC podcast awards here?
No. It's the awards of the season.
Okay, that'll do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second annual Saints FC Podcast Awards. So we're going to have nominations from James Bailey, from Tom Parker, and from myself, John Bailey. And then between the three of us, we're going to choose the person who is most... or the person or the situation or the moment that is most deserving of these awards. So let's start off with one which is normally quite a nice and easy one, but I think this season is actually quite a difficult one. But the Academy/Young Player of the Season. James and Tom, who have you got down and why?
I've got Bednarek down because he came in at the end of the season and put in good performances that probably kept us up, and despite not really having a good first run out against Wolves, he obviously has gone back onto the training pitch and worked hard and waited for his chance, and then he came on the pitch and played like the promising defender that we were told we'd bought at the start of the season.
Jack Stevens for me. I know he's had his faults and I've criticised him a little bit, but his commitment is 100%. He's scored important goals when it's mattered. And I think he has stepped up into a leadership role in a team that has been lacking in leaders. So for me, I think he's done really well. And also I think he's a tremendously promising footballer for Saints.
I mean, can I ask a question here? What denotes a young player?
He's probably like 38, isn't it, something, Jack Stevens?
I mean, he's 24 years old, which also happens to be the same age. In fact, actually, James Ward-Prowse is younger than Jack Stevens. James Ward-Prowse is 23 years old. Jack Stevens is 24 years old. Does Jack Stevens... I mean, Jack Stevens was signed by Les Reed in 2010, Tom.
He was a child.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is he still a young player?
I think we had a dearth of talent. And isn't Raheem Sterling like 24 and he's nominated for PFA Young Player of the Year this year? So that's my basis. I'm going with the PFA Young Player rules.
Okay. I'm still actually astonished that James Ward-Prowse is only 23 years old. Younger than Jack Stevens. I mean, he's been hanging around for centuries, hasn't he?
We still don't know what he does.
I know. I mean, I'm in agreement with James. Jan Bednarek was going to be...
He played 4 games.
I know, but I mean, how important were those 4 games?
What, he scored 1 goal and we not... Oh, guys, can't stay in the way of brothers, I guess.
So, Bednarek, congratulations. You've won Young Player of the Season. Shame that's not gone to an academy player, I think.
It's just, I mean, who's come in? Sims played a few games.
Yes, I mean, Sims hasn't had as much of a go as you'd
I mean,
hoped.
I don't think anyone, like, a lot of the academy have really had slim pickings this season because it went down to the line at the end of the season, like they never got the runs out at the end of the season, and because the majority of the first team players didn't really get hurt that many times, and so no one really got a good stint in a position like they did the season before.
I've got Player of the Season next, which sounds like a very important award, but in the Saints FC Podcast Awards, I mean, this is just run-of-the-mill stuff.
McCarthy.
Alex McCarthy from Tom. Do you want to explain why?
Just because I think if you look at one player that made a difference, like I agree, like the team was fairly consistent, wasn't it, all year? There's no one really that came in and blew anyone away. You could argue Højbjerg did, but in terms of just making a difference, maybe this is the benefit of being a goalkeeper, it's McCarthy, wasn't it? And also he was in such stark contrast to the man who went before him.
James?
I'd have Højbjerg as my player of the season. Just peeps of passion. I mean, he didn't really get picked that much towards the start of the season, and really once they put him in the team, once Pellegrino put him in the team, he showed so much that it was very hard to not put him in the team.
I think he got something like 10 minutes, didn't he, under Pellegrino? So, like in the first 11 games of the season, it was something ridiculous.
Was that it?
I mean, Pellegrino was notorious for not playing certain players where you were like, why don't you just try playing him? Like the obvious one, Charlie Austin.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've got a different player from both of you two, which is Dusan Tadic. And my argument for this is Saints haven't had a particularly good season, but in the games that we have won, and ultimately the games that have got us over the line, Dusan Tadic has been pretty influential. I mean, if you take the away game against West Brom, the home game against Everton, in the games that have kind of ultimately kept us up at the end of the season, Dusan Tadic has been a pretty key part of the games that have counted. And that's why I've got... And
I bet you statistically, although he's much maligned until very recently by a lot of Saints fans, myself included, he has been consistently like our most impactful player, I think, in terms of assists, in terms of goals. Yeah. So, you know, we kind of get a bit annoyed at him, but we'd be in a lot worse place without him.
I mean, it's an interesting one. I don't know whether he deserves it, you know, because I don't think he's always given his all. Do you know what I mean? Like, you kind of would hope that, you know, you kind of expect more from Dusan Tadic. I mean, we always consider him the assist king. He's had 3 assists this season, which is pretty poor by his standards, but he's also scored 6 goals, and he's only 1 goal off where Charlie Austin was, which is, you know, quite interesting. He's probably had too much pitch time to be deserving of the player of the season, though. And then Pierre-Emile Højbjerg and Alex McCarthy probably had too little pitch time this season to win it. But I mean, I'm going to let you two battle this one out. I'm willing to concede on Dusan Tadic. So who's it going to be between the two of you? Can you find an even ground?
I would happily go Højbjerg. I think his effort, his commitment. He's also had a terrible year personally, with his dad passing away. He appears to be a natural leader, which again we've lacked on the pitch. He also, you know, he genuinely seems to care.
Yeah,
doesn't he? Like, he genuinely seems to. Like, I can't remember. I think was it after Newcastle where he kind of stood. He did that interview that went on for like 3 minutes, and he went well off script.
He did the interview that nobody wanted to do, didn't he?
Yeah, and I think he cares. You know, I did, and that's all really what fans want to see, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's confirmed. Congratulations, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Southampton Saints FC podcast player of the season. Next one, goal of the season.
I'm happy for you to go first on this one.
I know that the club the fans picked Gabbiadini's goal. That's actually not what goal of the season is, though. It's the best goal. And the best goal...
Nobody's going to be watching that one in 100 years' time to look for...
They're not going to show
technique.
Kids that, are they, at soccer school? I would say it has to be Boufal.
James?
I've gone for something different, though. I do think Bouffal's goal was excellent. I'm going to go for the Charlie Austin's second goal against Everton in that 4-1 win, and I think again technique. I thought he was excellent. I thought he got in front of the defender.
Can you? I can't remember it. Can you describe it for me?
It's where the Everton right back kind of gave up, didn't he? And was it Bertrand chased the ball down, or Tadic chased the ball down, and Everton just kind of stood there.
Yeah, Bertrand crossed it in, and Charlie Austin ran in front of ran across the goal in front of the defender, and did a glancing header backwards, which
off the bar.
Yeah, and it just snuck into the top corner, and the goalkeeper just couldn't get anywhere near it. And it actually takes a lot of good technique to do that. I certainly couldn't do it. I think quite a lot of Premier League football players can't do that, score a goal like that. And also, it was probably the only moment in the whole season where I was content that we were going to win the game, and I was just like, this is it. I relax factor. And I can sit back for the next 30 minutes of this game and enjoy myself.
Can we have another couple of mentions as well? Didn't Lamina hit a screamer?
Lamina hit a pile driver against West Brom away. Yeah, that was very good. I also loved Nathan Redmond's goal against Everton. I think that was really good, the way we broke. And you kind of saw the best of Saints at that moment with Tadic's very clever weighted pass, Cedric's whipped cross, and fair play to Redmond. It was a great downward header.
I also really enjoyed Dusan Tadic's chip against West Brom in the FA Cup quarter-final.
That was nice.
And I also really enjoyed Dusan Tadic's finish against Everton, which was the little kind of right foot, left foot, little jink and then finish. But I've got to say, I'm with you, Tom. I think people are going to be watching that Bouffal goal back.
It was great.
It was Maradona-esque, wasn't it?
Yeah, and what was brilliant is there were so many elements to it. There was the brilliant turn where he kind of takes out two players in his own half, the slalom run, and then for me the coup de grace isn't the finish. It's this brilliant moment where two lumbering West Brom defenders of boink off each other like something out of the Avengers.
Yeah, it's absolutely classic.
Like where he kind of just drops his shoulder and causes them to crash into each other, and then a very cool finish. Kind of spoil it with this little entitled child celebration. But I think in a season which has very few redeeming moments, that's probably the one bit you look back and go, genuine quality.
Yeah. So congratulations, Sophie and Bouffal. You've won the goal of the season competition from the Saints FC podcast, although nobody really likes you, which is why you didn't win it from the vote from the fans. Hero of the season. Or should we do villain of the season first and then do hero of the season?
For me, villain of the season is officials.
Officials.
I think the standard of officialdom this season has been terrible. And I think that combined with this bizarre semi-introduction of VAR, I just don't understand what they thought that was going to work in some games and not in others. I think we've been cheated out of points. And I don't think there's a big club, small club conspiracy, but bigger clubs seem to get the rub of the green more. And if you look at the Everton game, that's never a foul by Redmond. You look at the handball, the Corre at West Ham, at Watford. We've just not had the rub of the green.
James, what about you?
Well, I've got two down. So one sort of is in the same line with you, though I've gone for the player, Decore, because he did hit the ball in the back of the net with his hand. But I think it probably should be Pellegrino, because I think he stood in this club for 7 months, and I mean I think I knew something was wrong with Southampton after 2 games. I thought there was something was wrong.
That was Swansea at home and West.
Was it Swansea at home, and then the Wolves game was probably the second game of the season.
Yeah,
the League Cup.
I mean, probably more like 4 games, but I think he just stood on the side of that pitch watching us play awfully and not trying to change and do anything different. I was just, it's like those most annoying people you find at work. Those ones that just like, they're just doing a shit job, and it's like the ones that don't care. You're just like, oh, okay, I see you're pissed off about something. But the ones that are just completely oblivious to the fact that they're not doing stuff right, and you just look at them and go, I don't even know where to begin with you.
I mean, I had the officials down as my kind of villain or villains of the season as well, thinking that was going to be like a controversial or kind of like left field choice. But I mean,
I don't think this is a Saints fan thing as well. The standard of officialdom has been really
generally
poor.
speaking.
I mean, there's a reason why no English referees or linesmen are going to the World Cup.
Isn't that just an administrative error that what's his face retired and took a better job than refereeing?
Saudi. No, I don't. I think that. I mean, look, I remember the Everton game. The worst decision on the Everton game, bizarrely enough, wasn't the Redmond foul. It was one of the Everton players took it like a whole yard off the pitch, right in front of the linesman, when they were attacking, and the linesman didn't see it. To be honest, the standard's been really poor, and the standard is they sell it as a premium quality product, Premier League football, but the thing that binds it, which is the refereeing, is not premium quality.
So there you go, referees or officials, you have won the villain of the season, which is rather impressive in a season where we could have had plenty of villains. But it's funny enough, I think if we had been relegated, we would have talked about the officials an awful lot in this episode, because I mean they were just terrible, and they really nearly could have cost us the league. So should we go for the hero of the season then?
Oh God. It's such a weird concept.
Should I go first? Because I'm just asking the
Yeah.
questions. I'm just going to say Mark Hughes. I mean, I don't think we need to explain it because we talked about him earlier on, but I think Mark Hughes is the hero.
Yeah, I'd take that.
I would go something slightly different. I would go Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, purely for facing incredible. And if you haven't read his interview in The Independent, it was a little while ago, I'd strongly urge you to read it. The man's had an unbelievably difficult time with the death of his dad. And I think the character he's shown this season, when other people would have shrunk, he has grown. So for me, I think there's a big lesson in all of us, that we could all take from Pierre-Emile Højbjerg.
James, you said Mark Hughes as well.
Yeah, I think there's definitely honourable mentions to the players that turned up every week and showed that they cared on the pitch. Shane Long, Charlie Austin when he played, he certainly cared.
I mean, he didn't care enough to get himself fit, though, did he?
No, but he did.
But has he ever been fit?
Probably not.
I think I did see him fit, but I think he was playing for Swindon Town against us. But he could score goals, and he always looks like he cares, and he always looks like he knows where he wants the ball and communicates that to the other players. And I think Jack Stevens always cares. Højbjerg, all the time, every moment of the game, just lives it. And there are others as well.
Fans as well, by the way.
Oh yeah,
people
the fans definitely. Yeah, actually, the people
week in, week out, incredible support
for putting up with
that garbage.
Sticking. I mean, did they stick behind the team? I think we used to boo a lot. We were booing substitutions in FA Cup third round and fourth round.
Yeah,
but booing a substitution is different. And also, if you look at what the other teams would do when they come to us, and they'd not be losing against us, and their fans would completely lay into they'd be saying, we're effing shit, or we're 1-0 up,
Yeah.
When we're effing, all this stuff that we actually sort of stayed
like
away from.
How you managed to bleep out your Fs, but not
the S's are different. Whoa. No, this is not like wild man country here.
I can't bleep everything out.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, that makes me think, who deserves it more, Mark Hughes or to the fans? I think Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, he's already won our player of the season, so, let's
Yes, the fans aren't getting £1 million, are they? Most of them.
No, but I mean, who got us over the line? Was it the fans or was it Mark Hughes?
Mark Hughes.
It was Mark Hughes.
It was Mark Hughes. Mark Hughes, you are our hero of the season, despite being manager for a mere 8 Premier League games and just 2 FA Cup games. Most improved player, this is one that I didn't prep you with, but it is one we had last season. So who's your most improved player this season? Again, do you want me to go first? Because you two are both looking back at me with blank faces. Jan Bednarek, because, I mean, he started from a pretty low base. And the way he finished the season, he looked like a top-quality central defender.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I mean, against Wolves, he couldn't have been much worse.
No.
Poor guy.
Did he play a masterstroke there in setting the bar? So he heard of the Saints FC.
He knew what he could win.
I mean, Maya Yoshida won this award last season, and he liked our tweet about the award. So, I mean, he's obviously aware of the Saints FC podcast Most Improved Player of the Season award. Do you think when Jan showed up in the summer, he was just like, look, mate,
the other centre-backs pulled him to one side.
There's an award out here that's pretty important to go
PFA
for.
Young Player. Better.
It's the Saints FC Most Improved. Go out against Wolves, play the worst you could ever imagine to play, and then just...
It's like, doesn't that mean they thought I'm pretty pony in the first place? Yeah, but Jan, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
You can win the award.
You can win the award.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
I think also, to be fair to him with the Wolves performance, he probably turned up going and they were like, oh yeah, we're going to put you on in this League Cup game. We're playing this team from the lower league that are pretty crap because none of us have watched what they are, and we're not going to bother to tell you that they've spent like £40 million pounds on players over the summer. And he probably was like, oh okay, yeah, that's cool, I'll turn up, and then was like, what the? He's playing like a £20 million player. What's going on here? Oh, like he is a £20 million player.
Yeah, playing. I think you're right. I mean, Bednarek is a good shout. Again, I would say Højbjerg.
It's a good shout.
Just
yeah,
really
he was certainly better than last season, and
he's become a leader, isn't he?
I mean, the thing is with Højbjerg is he played for Bayern Munich before. He's won the Bundesliga title. I mean,
he's won like the German Cup like twice.
Has he got a Champions League winners medal? I don't think he played in the final.
I think he has. I think Bertrand's the only one with one of those. Lamina played in the final as well.
Yeah.
But I think, but most improved is not about where they were before. It's about
since
how they've
been
come at Saints, or even how they were since last season. So for me, Højbjerg is a good shout because that's my choice.
James.
I think Bednarek has a shout. We didn't show that much improvement this season.
I think you've got the casting vote, James. You can choose between Højbjerg or Bednarek here.
I'll go with Bednarek.
There we go, Bednarek. Congratulations, your season ambition has been awarded there.
He probably thought getting called in the provisional squad for the World Cup's good. When he learns this, he is going to go absolutely nuts.
And can we just say, if any of the football players or anyone who knows any of the football players in the Southampton squad wants to help us get in touch, and we'll create an award to give you.
We'll Mache trophies all round.
We'll put so much love into that trophy for you guys.
I mean, I'm not willing to do this, but if you guys want to make the trophy, like, get cracking.
I'd like to give it to Yoshida because he just seems so nice.
In fact, actually, it has reminded me of another thing which we probably do need a prize for, and I don't know what the prize should be yet. But in the Saints FC podcast Premier League fantasy football draft, Mitch Letitia got in contact with me this week to point out the fact that he's won that league. Do we have a prize for him? Or is the prize a shout out in
the prize is a shout out, yeah, and having the best surname in the history of Saints.
Yeah.
I
mean, Matt Letitia is his dad. That's how he's got that surname.
He could have changed it.
Yeah. Anyway, Mitchell, congratulations on winning that.
Some achievement as well.
Yeah.
Such commitment goes into fantasy football.
Yeah, I lost interest in fantasy football when I realised that I couldn't pick Southampton players and actually get any points out of it.
Yeah, I mean, my fantasy football performance is generally based on how well Southampton do, and this season's not been a great.
I mean, it really helps because you know which ones the point scorers are.
Yeah. We've got another award here, which is Chant of the Season, which we had last year because we had that fantastic chant about Manolo Gabbiadini. Has there been a decent chant that we've had this season that could get up for this award?
One player that seems to love his chant is Charlie Austin's Red and White.
Yeah.
He seems to really like that, and he hates Pompey, so that's for me.
Okay. James, any suggestions?
Lamina's chant was good. Was one I liked this season, but I think, I mean, I don't think we've had the most amazing chants, have we?
I mean, I really like the Mario Lamina song, which has the line in it, "He never gives the ball away." And then for me, that was just totally ruined in that 3-0 capitulation at the London Stadium against West Ham, where he gave the ball away in some quite critical situations.
But I remember the first time I heard that chant was the game at Palace, when we looked like we'd signed Paul Pogba, and that Man United had accidentally signed someone else because he was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should be an Arsenal player though.
We probably will be now.
I mean, I'm willing to just eliminate this one from. I don't think we've got a song.
It's a weak. And who do we give it to? We can't give it to 38,000 Saints fans.
No. So chant of the season: Saints fans must try harder next season.
Damning indictment.
Let's hope we have something more to sing about. I mean, let's face it. If we were in the FA Cup final this weekend, that Sparky Hughes is going to keep us up and win the FA Cup. I mean, that would have been
great.
That would have been the one. But you know what? Actually, maybe the chant of the season is "We are staying up.
Yeah.
We are staying up."
Yeah, that one's pretty good.
Yeah, there you go, Saints fans. Yeah, reinstated. "We are staying up" is the chant of the season.
Who'd have thought we'd be saying that this time last year?
Man, that is depressing, isn't it? Player/manager most likely to leave.
It's Buffal,
isn't it?
It's got to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. I mean, how about second most?
Carrillo.
Parige?
Yeah, I think he probably could go. Or someone. You know, the thing is actually the players that leave us are the best ones. So it probably could be Bertrand as well.
Yeah, I think Bertrand's a good shout.
I think Bertrand and Cedric are probably both on their way.
I think the Carrillo just stinks of former manager signing that no one else wants. Poor guy.
Yeah. I do feel sorry for him.
Pub quiz answer in a few years' time, Carrillo.
Saints, yeah. Moment of the season. Best and worst moments of the season, guys.
Best for me, the celebration with Charlie Austin, Dusan Tadic, Mark Hughes, and I think it was Jack Stevens after the Bournemouth game. Because I think that was the first time you saw a real togetherness.
Yeah, I really liked that. When that happened, I was like, okay, like no shadow of a doubt, he's doing the right job for us.
Isn't this, though, the opportunity where we get to give the award to Manolo Gabbiadini for scoring the goal that ultimately kept us in the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest moment for me this season was definitely the moment when the referee blew the whistle against Swansea, and it was all basically out. All of that pain was we could just put it behind us, and I really, really enjoyed that.
Here's a left field shout. What about when Wigan beat Man City and we knew that we'd be going to Wembley?
I think that it was nice. It's left field. I think for me though that it would have meant like I would have actually obviously I've said this, but I would have preferred to us to win the FA Cup and go down.
Yeah,
been quite open about that this season. But yeah, I don't know. It's just something at Bournemouth, the celebration. You kind of felt that you had a manager that was able to bring together a nucleus of players that cared enough to keep us in the Premier League.
I mean, it was great to finally see the result of that industry as well, that we'd seen against Arsenal and Chelsea, who are sides that had better quality. But actually, once we applied ourselves against a side with a kind of like similar level of quality, if not worse quality, we were actually able to get the win.
I agree.
So is it victory against South Coast rivals, not really rivals, kind of friends, Bournemouth?
But it's not. It wasn't the victory. I think
It's the celebration.
It's the celebration because it's for me. It's what the celebration symbolised. It could have been playing anyone. You forget Bournemouth. It was just about the fact that maybe just maybe he's convinced them that they've got enough in them that they can stay in this league.
Okay, so I've decided on my favourite one, and that's Mark Hughes marching the players off the bus and into the Liberty Stadium at Swansea is my best moment of the season, I think, which is kind of when we knew we had a manager that was a leader and the leadership that we've been lacking. What are we going to give? I mean, the Swansea game's got 2 nominations, but maybe it's the Bournemouth celebrations. Maybe it's that first glimmer of hope that the Great Escape might be on.
Yeah, I'm happy to go with that. I mean, I was really, really pleased to see that when I saw it.
Well done, Tom. Worst moment of the season?
The Everton equaliser.
Really?
Oh, it was horrible for me. It was horrible. I think it was just a crushing disappointment, and it was that feeling of we can't do any more. What can we do? That it was because also it was almost quite preventable as well. It wasn't like someone plucked the ball out of the air and hit a 30-yard volley. There was the foul that wasn't, and then there was a bad clearance, and then there was Højbjerg getting his feet mixed up.
And it was so late.
And it was so late.
And it was a deflection.
For me, that was a killer moment.
I mean, what's quite interesting about that is I wasn't watching the game. I was at my brother-in-law's wedding. And so I just kind of saw the text updates coming in. I expected us to win, and then I saw it as a draw. But ultimately, a draw away at Everton wasn't the end of the world because we knew if we get a point there, we always knew that we had to beat Swansea. So it didn't really change anything.
Yeah, I'd agree. But I think it was just psychological. It was the gutting, heart-wrenching moment of
What about the capitulation against Chelsea though in those 8 minutes as a worst moment of the season? Wasn't that worse than the Everton one?
I'd have been surprised. But I'd have been surprised if we were going to get anything out of Chelsea. Particularly once they brought Giroud on.
Chelsea was very hard. I went to the game and, after we'd scored the second goal, I was believing. I was getting happy, and I was like, we can do it. We can win this game. And if we can win this game, then we can stay up. Yeah, that's the way it goes, right? We start beating these good teams, we can stay up. And then they just sucker punched us 3 times and destroyed us in 10 minutes. It was pretty awful. But that's not what I'm going to go for either. I'm going to go for that first half against West Ham.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Which was horrific.
I mean, has your dad watched a game of football since, Tom?
Yeah, we've watched. I mean, he's watched that. I mean, I don't think we could have got him to another game after that this season. Yeah, I mean, you know what? You're actually right. I think that the Everton game was, and I think the Everton. You know what? Actually, I'm going to rescind my vote because the next category is what the Everton game would be my entry for. But I think you're absolutely right. I think the complete and utter falling to pieces against West Ham, the bizarre, West Ham was so there for the taking, and to do what we did, I think you're absolutely right, was so inexcusable. So for me, I changed my vote and I completely go with that.
Okay, which means that I'm going to lose this one, which was home 4-1 defeat to Claude Puel's Leicester City. I wasn't there, but that hurt.
That would have been another game where you could have gone bye-bye.
Yeah. I mean, the Palace game really, really hurt as well, the Palace game at home.
I mean, a lot of them hurt, really. Let's be honest.
And that's the funny thing. A lot of them felt like getting punched in the stomach this year, a lot like sucker punches. Really, apart from Leicester and maybe Liverpool, no one really gave us a good tonking, did they? It was.
What about Tottenham Hotspur? On
Spurs did, yeah. But even then, we scored twice. It was just more like the sucker punches that hit us. They hit us all
stomach,
season.
Yeah. Okay, so West Ham United at the London Stadium, that first half, wins the worst moment of the season. Most bleedingly obvious, typical Saints thing to do of the season, which is a classic award that we have. Tom, I think we already know what your nomination's going to be.
Yeah, that equaliser. It was like, I would have almost have been amazed if they hadn't equalised. It just seemed to be a very Saints thing to do. It was horrible.
James, what's your nomination for this one?
So is this a single moment, or is it just something that we do quite frequently?
It's the most bleedingly obvious, typical Saints thing to do of the season. So it could be something that we do very, very, very frequently, because that would be bleedingly obvious, typical Saints thing to do.
For me, it's got to be the most frustrating thing every time I go and watch them is that we win the ball off the opposition and we don't immediately attack.
So just basically being slow out of the blocks.
So like negative tactics almost.
Yeah, and surely the most bleedingly obvious thing to do when you win the ball is to go forward and attack. And in many games we just didn't do that.
Not if Pellegrino is your manager, as we learned in Romeo's
consolidate from the back.
Yeah, the Daily Echo. I think I can beat both of you two with this, and it's not a specific moment, but it sounds very specific. Cedric at the back post.
Oh yeah,
that happened a few times. That one, didn't it? I mean,
that was definitely consistent throughout. I mean, the thing with the corners and the crosses and all the headed goals.
Conceding from Saints corners,
but because conceding from Saints corners wasn't true when Virgil van Dijk was playing for us and being angry. He would not let that happen. But yeah, certainly Cedric at the back post.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of games where Cedric was left. I mean, the one that always springs to mind was Glenn Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel sorry for Cedric because he shouldn't be left like that. He shouldn't be isolated. It's not his fault.
And he contributes so much going forward as well.
Yeah,
but it's a typical Saints thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a bleedingly obvious.
But it was never like that with Fonte and Van Dijk. It's just this season our centre backs can't defend crosses.
I'm kind of thinking, while Cedric at the back post, I was pretty confident that I was going to win. I quite like your suggestion, Tom, because the Everton equaliser has so many things that went wrong for Saints, all in one kind of moment.
It's like a microcosm.
Yeah, so like bad refereeing decisions, giving away a really crucial goal very, very late in the game, an awful deflection, multiple opportunities to get the ball out of danger and totally avoid the situation happening. I mean, there's about 5 or 6 different things that happened in that one moment, which you could say are kind of bleedingly obvious and typical Saints, that are all captured in that.
Yeah, for me, it encapsulated a season. If you looked at where it all gone wrong for us, some things in our control, some things out of our control. Everton was it.
So, I mean, I don't know kind of how we've ended up on this kind of slightly dour point at the end of our Saints FC podcast awards. Let's just go back and tell you what our award winners are. So Academy or / Young Player of the Season has gone to Jan Bednarek. Player of the Season, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. Goal of the Season, Sofiane Boufal. Hero of the Season, Mark Hughes. Villain of the Season, the Premier League officials. Most Improved Player, Jan Bednarek. Chant of the Season, we're staying up. Player Manager, most likely to leave, Boufal. Best moment of the season, the Bournemouth celebrations. Worst moment of the season, West Ham United at London Stadium. And most bleedingly obvious, typical Saints thing to do this season was that Everton equaliser, which means Sofiane Boufal has won 2 awards, as has Jan Bednarek. So congratulations to them, multiple Saints FC podcast award winners. Tom and James, I mean, how do you want to finish this season in podcasting terms? Just tell us, what are your final thoughts?
Let's just do a hell of a lot better next season. I mean, we've left ourselves with a world of areas where we can improve from pretty much every single area of the football club, and let's go out and do that and actually improve, because that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I don't think it's complicated. I think let's get Hughes locked down. Let's get rid of the bad eggs. Let's bring in the players that are blindingly obvious that we need to bring in. Let's get that team spirit back. And I think we'll be this time next year. We'll all be much more positive.
Yeah, I mean, let's hope that next season we might have an award. The Premier League's most improved team of the season. That would be great if that would be Southampton Football Club. Anyway, Saints FC podcast fans, thank you for sticking with us throughout this season. We hope to be back next season with more player interviews, with more kind of moments on the sofa like this, with Tom and with James and various other guests that we can rope in from far and distant lands.
More wins to discuss.
Oh, plenty more wins to discuss.
Goals.
That would be great. Loads more goals. Who knows what the next season has, lined up for us. Who knows? I mean, maybe this is going to be a fantastic summer with a World Cup win. We've got a Brit leading the Giro d'Italia. We've got Wimbledon. We've got other things that happen like cricket in the summer. So there's lots of things to get excited about. We will be back. I don't know. I might poke my nose into the World Cup at some point. I'll see how much I'm missing podcasting. But thank you very much for listening, everyone, and we're ready for some Saints chat sometime in August.
Yeah, we'll see you for a pre-season preview.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Goodbye.